Hey everyone, this is another episode of Science with Sean, and I really wanted to go into a topic that's pretty near and dear to my heart, and that's how to master your emotions, or what's kind of called in the autism circle, how to self-regulate. I think this is uh, one of the most important skills that you can have, and it's taken me about 5 years to really start to get this down. Um, I still struggle with it at times, but I just wanted to share a few tips along the way of things that may be helpful for you. And so this is one of the biggest misconceptions that I had of people who were on the spectrum, who were really smart, that they were just hyper logical all the time, that their emotional threshold just didn't really, their emotions never really got too high. They were very objective. And after reading a lot of books from whether it be Temple Grandin or Daniel Tammet, who's a savant as well as being diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, um, they have really rich emotional lives. Like um, sensory wise, they derive a lot of pleasure from engaging in, say, mathematics or architecture or whatever the case may be. Um, and I think that was one of the most surprising things that I've found that was like true of me as well. Now, 98% of the time, I'm very logical and pragmatic about things. I think most people tend to assume that I'm pretty stoic, but there's that 2% of the time where uh, people on the spectrum can get into a heightened state where the limbic system takes over in the brain and you're just running on pure emotion and like logic is out the window. And that can be a really dangerous place to be in, whether that's due to um, some family emergency, some health scare, or you just got like rejected by your boss, or you got fired, or whatever it may be. I think this is a really important skill to learn how to regulate those emotions and bring you back down so that you're centered, so that you don't make any impulsive decisions that you might later regret, and just to make sure that you are handling the situation in a healthy way. Now, I think this can be very beneficial to people who are not on the spectrum as well, just learning how to just acknowledge what emotions you have. Now, this is difficult for people on the spectrum to even identify what it is that you're really feeling because um, you can be so cerebral and in your head that what's going on in your body, what's going on emotions wise internally is really difficult to pinpoint. Um, but hopefully these strategies I think can be really helpful to people who are not on the spectrum as well. Just general advice that I think a lot of it is pretty scientific, and I'll point out specific strategies that have a good, robust scientific backing. Um, and so, yeah, yeah. And I just wanted to kind of address this issue because um, globally, not just for people on the spectrum, uh, because I think there is still stigma around men acknowledging their emotions or their worries or fears and what have you. And for whatever reason, that's just never, I've never understood that. Um, because when I think of a strong person, I think it takes a rather weak person to refuse to acknowledge their emotions because that when you refuse to kind of check in with yourself, um, a lot of poor decisions can be made after that. You know, it doesn't take a strong person, I don't think, to turn to alcohol, to look to alcohol for comfort, even though it's a very common strategy. Um, you know, even overeating can be a strategy for people um, taking out their anger and frustration on others. You know, these are all things that don't take any vulnerability or strength a lot of times. It really takes uh, strength to abstain from some of those harmful substances or practices. And I think when you learn how to not only identify your emotions, but then once you identify your emotions, you know how to cope in healthy ways. Um, and I think that's a strong person who's able to do that. That no matter what comes at you, you can be confident that you know how to handle, uh, just the hard times that life can throw at you. And sometimes they are tragic and near catastrophic and things like that. Um, but I think this is a skill that learning to check in with yourself and figure out how to get to the root of the problem, address it head on, and come up with some solutions it is really a major skill that I think will serve you well in the future and has really helped me out, even though I have not perfected this by any means. So, but I'll give you about four bullet points here. And the first one that the first strategy is kind of obvious, but I think is actually hard to do in practice. The number one strategy that I have to tell myself is don't freak out. Like, it's never the right response. Losing my shit, losing my cool is not, it's only going to cost me time, it's going to cost me energy, and it just doesn't fix the problem. So, um, a lot of times I'll have a decision to make between not necessarily a good coping skill and a bad coping skill, but a lot of times like, oh, I have a few different things that I could do that I know would be beneficial, um, but I don't know which one to choose. And what I have to tell myself in that situation is that the only wrong decision is no decision. Um, and learning how to do that kind of quickly, just like commit to doing something that is guaranteed to improve, or you don't have to make a pros and cons list for every permutation that could be beneficial. You can just go into just do if it's beneficial, do it. I think that's one of the more helpful pieces of advice that I learned from Jordan Peterson in one of his books, 12 Rules for Life, and then Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life. So, but the whole don't freak out um, strategy, I really got that from Brene Brown. And I got this next sort of strategy from Brene Brown as well. So this is all, pretty well researched by, you know, credible scholars in their own right. And so people who have, PhDs and stuff like that. So the second strategy is to talk through the problem with a trusted family member or friend. Um, so you really want to look for someone who has earned the right to listen to has earned the right to listen to you and uh, someone who you can trust with unveiling some of the difficult aspects of your life. You don't have to divulge everything. I would encourage you not to do that. Um, but people who have, if you don't know who that is, just try and think back to people um, who you have confided in the past. And if they have responded favorably, then you can metaphorically put more marbles in the jar. So the marble jar analogy is also coined by Brene Brown, where her daughter actually came up with it and then she wrote about it in her book. Um, but imagine that you have a jar and you have all these marbles that you can put the marbles into. You put the marbles in the jar. And for every positive conversation that you have, you can put marbles in that trust jar, basically. And every time that someone does not respond in a way that you would like them to, you can take marbles out of that jar and you don't have to confide in them in the future. It would be wise of you not to continue to confide in that person if they prove to be not just unhelpful, but if it's even harmful for you to share such sensitive information with them. And so, yeah, that's the second strategy is talk through the problem with a trusted family member or friend. And you don't even have to, you can just vent if you want to. You can write it out if you would feel more comfortable with that first. Um, but you don't have to come up with solutions just yet. There have been times where I'm just really upset and like I don't want to hear any suggestions. I don't want to hear any solutions right now. I just want people to say, I know this is hard, Sean. I know this isn't fair, but I'm here for you. And I'm here to listen as long as you need me to. Um, that's all I really want in that moment. So, um, the third strategy is when you do try to address the problem head on. So you want to get right at the root of the problem. Try and see if is this like a symptom level? Is this like to use a tree analogy? Is this are we getting down to the root of the problem, or are we just grabbing, the visible parts of the tree? Um, and so you can write, a lot of times this is where I like to write out potential solutions to the problem. And this is kind of a form of exposure therapy where you choose to voluntarily, that part's important. You are purposefully confronting the problem, and that takes courage. Um, it doesn't take courage to have someone kind of, when you have no other choice but to deal with it. Like you don't have to deal with it right now, but if you voluntarily do confront the problem before it's like absolutely a dire situation and you have to, then that's really going to help alleviate a lot of the anxiety or fear. Um, and a lot of times, there is a solution, and often there are multiple solutions to a problem. So I try to write out all the potential solutions or potential ways that I can ameliorate or better my situation, even if it's just a little bit. Um, and then I can also like Google search, 100 solutions potentially to the problem. I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge at your fingertips that can really help you to get ideas. And that's really what I'm looking for in this stage. It's just generating ideas. I don't care if they're um, They don't have to be the greatest ideas ever. Just write down anything that you think could potentially help the situation. And then you start combining them, prioritizing them, and things like that once you get down to it. And some of them are not always feasible time-wise or money-wise or whatever. So then you can get down practically uh, to what's going to be the easiest to employ, what's going to give you the most benefit, the most bang for your buck, so to speak. So, and then the last strategy, the fourth strategy, establish some of your go-tos before, like your go-to coping skills before you get into um, a predicament, before you become heightened in your emotions and stuff like that. Um, so you can remove triggers, delay all the non-essential activities. So just push everything back. In like an emergency situation, just push everything that's non-essential, um, and don't feel like you need to deal with that right now. That's not what's important in that moment. Um, those are trivial compared to like just getting yourself grounded and calm, uh, and reducing that fear and anxiety or anger, whatever it may be. Um, but think about what some of the coping skills that work for you a lot of the time, that yield consistent, good results for you. So for me, this looks like watching stand-up comedy or watching my favorite comedy TV show that I've seen before, so that there aren't going to be any surprises. That's really comfortable for me. I don't really want to watch something that's brand new. I really like to go and rewatch certain things that I already know that I like and enjoy. Um, and then once that calms me down a little bit, I can engage in maybe my special interest. I can read. I can um, maybe start doing some light exercise or whatever. Um, and I think a final point under this strategy would be to make sure that you have someone there with you. You don't have to interact with them. They don't have to interact with you. But I always felt more comfortable when I had at least one person there with me watching my show, or um, someone I can still go to just in case those emotions do come back. Those difficult emotions and intrusive thoughts, or any unwanted thoughts that are painful or unwanted and stuff like that. So, and I think it's, if you're on the spectrum, you know, there's no guarantee that this won't happen again. But I think that having these four strategies and knowing them ahead of time is like half the battle. Just knowing what your go-to coping skills are, just not freaking out and making the problem worse. Having people that you already know that you can go to, at least 3 to 5 people that you can call, um, if they can't be there present physically with you, um, and getting a good getting good practice at this will only improve, I think, your results. So, um, I will say, um, this is not like as an asterisk. This isn't another strategy, but um, I would recommend abstaining from alcohol when the emotions are difficult, because that's just going to amplify things. Even one drink, whether it's a one beer or a glass of wine or whatever, that's going to impact your sleep quality. Um, so it's really going to decrease the quality of your sleep, even with just one drink. And then it's actually going to increase your cortisol levels when, say, you drink even just once a week. I would really, I would I can't tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell anyone what they won't need to do, but alcohol also is going to increase the release of the cortisol stress hormone um, when you're not drinking. So when you do drink, it's going to take away the anxiety, but whenever you're not drinking, even if you're only drinking once a week, um, the times when the days that you are not drinking, those stress hormones are going to be higher, and so that may you may want to consider getting rid of the alcohol for that week or for any desirable length of time because that'll help with um, the strong emotions and help you regulate them and so forth. So, if you're on the spectrum, I just want to let you know that this is normal. I've been there. Your brain is different. It's hard. It's supposed to be harder for you. Um, but I hope that this will equip you to deal with, you know, this will be a good foundation. This is not an exhaustive list of strategies to combat difficult emotions, but um, to combat anger or fear or anxiety, but or depression or anything like that. But um, once you get good at this, I mean, you'll be so much more confident and because you'll be equipped to deal with anything that comes your way. And I think that's a skill that everyone could use is, when life gets shitty, when it gets hard, um, don't just learning not to avoid the difficult situations, and just like delaying or procrastinating, but really learning how to address that head on and employ that kind of voluntary exposure therapy, and that's a really robust scientific strategy. So, once you master de-escalating emotions, you'll be able to handle anything that comes your way. So, I hope that's encouraging. Um, Thank you for staying for another episode of Science with Sean, and let me know if you found this beneficial in the comment section, or like the video or subscribe if you want to. So, thank you and have a good day.